Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Shit can get dangerous, yeah. Shit can get dangerous, yeah. You staying with a lame bitch, yeah. Well, I'm staying with the gang bitch, 'cause that's gang shit. Like, ooh, and they gon' stay by my side, 'cause them boys down to ride, yeah. Like, ooh, she tryna play with my mind, I can't be wasting no time, yeah. But them boys my wheels, got in my bag and I got out my field. I'm getting this paper, I'm stacking a meal. I'm with your hoe in the house on the hills, yeah. I'ma keep it real, had to sacrifice to try to get my bands up. Shorty wanna fuck with me, she see me on the camera. She say she in love with me, but really I can't stand her. She just want part of this life 'cause she see me on.
Hey everyone, today I present to you, What if Sasuke Uchiha was the sword hero, Part 1. Please enjoy. From the birth of the elemental nations, war was a constant. It was the bloodied history that never faded as civilization progressed. But after the Fourth Great Shinobi War, also called the War to End All Wars that will change for the better or worse, the rabbit goddess Kaguya having been sealed into the moon, a godlike being who had managed to put humanity into a never-ending eternal dream called the infinite Tsukuyomi. It was a hard-fought battle, one mainly due to the combined efforts of Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, who had managed to gain the powers of the Sage of Six Paths, power which were not seen before and eclipses mortal understanding. And with that power, two childhood friends fought on the Valley of the Ends. On one side, Sasuke fought to change the world, to take revenge for the injustice forced upon him and his family, to bring justice to his deceased brother, to bring peace to this cursed world. On the other side, Naruto fought to protect the village, his home and friends, to bring Sasuke back to the village, to stop him from walking on the dark path. As the fight progressed, both the reincarnation of Asura and Ender fought more viciously, using powerful and vicious attacks. Their attacks were so destructive that a new valley started to be carved on the land. As both of their final attacks glided, a massive explosion erupted in the sky which sent them sailing to the ground. Even after being bruised all over the body and having almost non-existent chakra left, both of them still fought with everything they got. After another unexpected punch from Naruto which sent Sasuke flying, both of them started panting and gasping for breath. As Sasuke got up all bruised and exhausted, he glared at the blonde teen and yelled, "Why? Why won't you just give up? Why don't you understand what I'm trying to do is the right thing?" He felt lightheaded after all the fighting as the exhaustion caught up to him. As the blonde also got up and looked upon his childhood friend as he replied, "Because the path you're taking isn't the right one, because that path will only take you into darkness, because I want to save my best friend and bring him back home. Even if I have to beat it into you." One could just feel the resolve that the blonde put on every single word. After so much suffering and pain, he would not let his friend go to the dark side that he swore to himself. Even after all his betrayal, leaving the village, becoming a rogue ninja and trying to kill their friends, this fool still wants him to come back. As a regretful soft smile bloomed on his face, this fool. His thoughts were cut as a strange pattern of symbols started appearing under him. As the symbols started to glow brighter, the last thing he saw was a confused and worried blonde calling his name before his consciousness faded. The next moment, when his consciousness returned, he shot up like an arrow to face the danger as he examined his surroundings. He was now at an ornately designed room with the same symbols on the floor which brought him here. Around him was a group of cloaked men who were looking at him with awe. Besides him was a trio of oddly dressed teens who also looked dumbfounded at the predicament. As he was scanning the room, his eyes shot wide open as he noticed that his previously bruised body was fully recovered. Not even a cut was visible, even the clothes he was wearing during the entire war returned to their esteemed condition. Another thing was that his insanely huge chakra reserves was full to the peak. But he knew that shouldn't have been. And what surprised him the most was the ornate sword he was holding onto, which had a purple gem on the hilt. As he prepared himself for battle and to get some answers, he heard the cloaked man in the front shout in joy. "Fantastic! The summoning was a success," a voice exclaimed, breaking Sasuke's stance. "Brave heroes, would you please save our world from pure evil?" a blond man in robes proclaimed, surrounded by 4 similarly clad people. What? Sasuke thought, yet to his surprise his sentiment was mimicked by 3 additional voices. As Sasuke looked to his side he saw the 3 guys around his age get up from the floor where they were laid a moment ago. A boy in a yellowish-green school uniform with blonde hair, holding an ornate bow, an older guy wearing a red shirt over a white one with long blonde hair holding the same type of spear, and a dark spiky-haired guy only a little older than him wearing a green tracksuit and a shield. Where am I? And what the hell is this? The green guy stated confused. This prompted Sasuke to look at the sword again which he was holding onto. After a closer inspection he saw a similar gem on each of the other weapons, only with colors matching their user's color scheme. Summoning? Their world? Was I summoned to this world by a summoning ritual without my consent? Thoughts of rage and anger started to rise in Sasuke's mind. They will regret doing this if they think they can just summon me to do their bidding. The summoning was a success. Quickly, inform the king of this, the man said to one of his colleagues, causing them to head up the stairs behind the group. What do you mean your world is in need of saving? The yellow kid asked. Returning the matter at hand the leader continued. It is a long and complicated story, however all shall be cleared up as soon as. I refuse, Sasuke said in a cold and heartless tone as he pointed the sword he was holding in the leader's direction. The killing intent/bloodlust he was releasing drowned the entire room and forced all the occupants to fall onto their rear. No one could even move a muscle because of the pressure bearing down on them including the other 3 heroes. The leader who was at the foremost of the crowd was kneeling on all 4 shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, since most of the pressure was directed at him. Through his haggard breathing he could only get out a single word, me mercy. At that the pressure inside the room intensified as the Uchiha looked at the man and said coldly, Mercy? What mercy? You take me from my world without my consent and then make a very hefty request? Who do you think I am? I have no intentions on neither staying nor fulfilling your desires. His words horrified the group of men as his cold words chilled their spines with fear. Hey now why you shouldn't? The guy in red tried to say but as soon as he looked at the Uchiha's ominously glowing rinnegan his breath hitched and couldn't speak another word. The Uchiha scoffed at the guy in red's showing fake confidence. He then turned his gaze to the other 2 teens who were still laying down on the floor shell-shocked. He once again focused on the group of cloaked people and started nearing them. Each step he took felt like a death sentence to the people present inside the room. When he was close enough to the leader of the cloaked men, he grasped his throat and lifted him up with a single arm. Give me a single reason why I shouldn't just kill you all right now. The words said by the Uchiha froze everyone with terror. The man hanging by the Uchiha's arm was thrashing at this point to get out of the death grip. As the Uchiha was about to end the man's life someone moved. A scrawny teen in a heavy brown cloak stumbled forward and kneeled on all 4 with his head on the ground. Like everyone else the boy was also shaking with fear. Please sir hero do and not harm to them. We are facing a world-ending sea calamity. So the king had in no other sea choice but to summon the heroes of our legends. If you're displeased by summoning you without your consent then take him my life as our repentance. But, please help us. Even while fear gripping his entire body the boy stuttered through his plea. Especially after his loud shout, which made the entire room become as quiet as a grave. The Uchiha stared down the boy for quite some time. He couldn't help but mentally sigh at the foolishness of the boy for risking his own life for others. The boy had resigned himself to his fate and was waiting for his death to come. Thud. Cough cough. A loud thud sounded added by sounds of continuous coughing. The leader of the cloaked men was back on the ground trying to take air in his lungs as much as possible. The pressure inside the room suddenly subsided as the occupants inside could once again freely move and breathe. As the moment passed Sasuke looked at the boy and said in an icy tone, "Take me to this king of yours." The boy was dumbfounded along with everyone as a few inaudible words escaped their mouths. The boy clumsily stood up and hastily replied, the king was informed the very moment the heroes were summoned. We were just about to request you to come to an audience with T the King. Even if the boy tried to show a professional front, it steadily broke as his words turned to mumbles. Very well, he indicated the boy to lead the way. The boy hesitated and looked at the leader while fidgeting in his place. Once the leader got back on his feet and could breathe normally again, he nodded at the kid with a solemn look. The kid nodded back and said, "If you would please follow me." Now Fumi POV. One moment I was at the library, reading a mysterious half-written book. The next moment I'm transported to another world, in an ornately decorated room with a group of oddly clothed people cheering. I felt something on my arm, and saw that there was a oddly shaped metallic shield with a green gem on the center connected to my arm. As the group of cloaked men finished talking among themselves and addressed us saying, "Brave heroes, would you please save our world from pure evil?" What now? Was my first thought. And it seemed like the sentiment was shared with the three people beside me. Two of them looked fairly normal, if not a little too much good looking. Like the people you would see every day in modern Japan. But the third person looked quite odd. He was a black-haired boy who surprisingly looked the most Japanese out of all of them. He looked quite a few years younger than me and had the palest complexion I've ever seen. His clothes were also quite odd as well. He wore an ash-colored jacket with its collar sticking out, and dark blue pants with a blue cloth hanging from halfway up his stomach to his knees. He also wore a purple rope belt around his waist, tied in a bow. But what surprised me the most was the mismatched eyes of the boy. One of them was onyx and the other was light purple irids with a ripple pattern. Are those commas? I refuse. Suddenly everyone inside the room froze as an unseen pressure descended and caused them except the dark-haired teen to fall to their knees. I didn't know why I was on the ground hyperventilating. I couldn't feel anything except fear. This wasn't the fear I usually felt when I was scared of something. No, this was primal fear, what one feels for one's life. The heart in my chest was beating a mile a second and its sound was deafening to my own ears. No other sounds registered to me besides that. Suddenly the pressure bearing on me increased even more, threatening the contents of my stomach to come out. My entire body was shaking as my eyes frantically darted around the room. As my eyes met the black-haired teen's mismatched ones, my stomach dropped. At that moment I felt like a bug about to get crushed under his foot. As moments passed, the pressure bearing down on me suddenly subsided and I could once again breathe. What just happened? And what was that? Was my thoughts while taking mouthful of air. Next thing I know, the cloaked men were ushering us to follow them. Not knowing what to do, I stood up with shaky legs. Along with the other two teens we started to follow the group, all the while maintaining a certain distance from the black-haired teen like everyone else. Third person's POV. As the group exited the summoning room and made their way to the winding corridors, Sasuke was in deep contemplation. Now that the adrenaline in his body has died down, he can once again think rationally. He has been summoned to a world which he knows nothing about. The geology, history and laws are unknown to him. These unknown factors could be detrimental for a shinobi. For this, the first step is to gather sufficient information and to assess threats. As they took another turn, the corridor led to a larger hallway. The hallway was very spacious with red carpets and marble flooring. It was fully comprised of red, white and gold colors. On one side of the wall there were large glass windows, viewing the large city underneath the hill where the castle is located. On the other side of the wall there were detailed portraits of people dressed in elegant clothes. One of the large portraits caught his attention. It depicted a family of four. An old wrinkled man with snow-white hair and beard. A middle-aged woman with porcelain-white skin and lavender-colored hair. With them were two young girls. The older one had very red hair and the younger one had the same shade of hair as the woman. "Where are we currently?" Sasuke asked the boy, trying to get further information. The boy jumped at the sudden inquiry but replied immediately saying, "We're at Castle Town, the capital of Melromark." "And what is this world-ending calamity you speak of?" Seeing that it would take some time before they reached the throne room, The boy tried to answer the Uchiha's questions to the best of his abilities. Their sea called the waves of sea calamity which spawns monsters that destroy everything in sight. The others kept quiet but were listening attentively to their conversation. Gradually questions about who and what the cardinal heroes are? What is this status magic that only the heroes possess? Were answered. And what makes this sword so special? The boy tried to answer the Uchiha's question but failed to do so, not knowing what to say. The leader, seeing the boy's inability to answer, decided to answer instead. The cardinal weapons are relics possessing immense power inside them. They say the legendary weapons can grow stronger with their wielder unlocking their legendary power in a way that serves their masters best. It is said that their power is near limitless. And what exactly are these powers? To that the man shaked his head as he replied, there are no exact records of what these powers really are. All we have are legends of the amazing feats of the previous heroes. It is said that the sword hero can cut through a mountain if needed, and that the bow hero can strike down a target from the other side of the world. The shield hero can survive even an army attempting to harm him with no trouble at all. And the spear hero could defeat armies all alone. Nodding at the man, Sasuke thought about what he now knows. Even though he is skeptical about the sword and magic they speak of, he has seen weirder things which doesn't make much sense. Soon they came to the end of the long hallway as the mages bid them farewell and left. Entering through two massive doors, they were greeted by a large throne room full of beautiful craftsmanship and artworks. Marble pillars and ornate objects littered in every corner. In each side of the room there were rows of people standing. A single look was enough to know that all of them were of a higher standing. There were also a large amount of guards spread through the entire throne room. Looking around, Sasuke couldn't find anyone powerful he could mark as a threat. The guards might as well be civilians guarding chickens. As his eyes swept the entire room once more, it stopped on a dark corner of the ceiling. Found you, Sasuke thought and smirked as his eyes never left the corner while walking. At that corner was a person, hiding in the darkness, shocked out of her mind. How? For the first time in her life someone has found her so effortlessly. As a shadow of the queen, her ability to hide herself is second to none. As his eyes never left her spot, only a single thought came to her mind. He is dangerous. For even the most skillful warrior, finding the shadow's location while they're hiding would be extremely hard. But for Sasuke Uchiha it might as well be child's play. Even a low jonin could hide their presence better than the shadow. At the end of the hall the king was seated on his throne at an elevated pedestal. This was the same old man whose portrait Sasuke had seen a few moments ago. But what truly piqued his interest is the larger empty throne beside the king. If the king holds a similar position like the daimyo from his own world, then he should be the one sitting on the larger throne. It could mean that the king isn't the true ruler of the country. Sasuke and the other three teens stopped in front of the stairs leading up to the throne of the king and waited. The king looked down upon the heroes and said in a disinterested tone, I see it is true then. The heroes have been summoned through the ritual as it was prophesied. The king spoke as the four lined up in front of him. But the other three heroes maintained their distance from the black-haired boy. Speaking up for the heroes to hear, he began his speech. So, you young men are the cardinal heroes of legend. Welcome to the kingdom of Melromark. I am her king Altkray the 32nd. Please heroes, identify yourselves. The king requested following his introduction. A minute passed as nobody spoke, but finally the guy in red stepped forward as he said, my name is Motoi Asukita 21 years old, college student, the spear hero. Following Motoi Asu's lead, the blonde teen also stepped forward and introduced himself. I am Atsuki Kawasumi, 17, also a high school student. I am the bow hero. Seeing that two of his fellow heroes have already introduced themselves, Naofumi also stepped forward and said, I'm Naofumi Watani, 19, college student, and I guess I'm the shield hero. The king looked annoyed allowing the shield to talk, but now he was more interested in the last hero who looked far too different from the other three heroes. Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha. The king was waiting for the sword hero to introduce himself further than his name. The same way that his fellow heroes have done. But after an agonizing minute of silence, It was clear that the Uchiha wasn't going to share anything more than his name. The king was quite annoyed at the behavior of the sword hero but moved on to more important matters for now. Heroes, if you would please open your status screen. Check the bottom right of your vision, you should see something there, the king explained to the heroes. If you focus on it, it should show you your stats. Nodding at the king, the heroes tried opening their status page. And one by one pages of text started appearing in front of them. Whoa, this is quite weird, Naofumi said, baffled. It didn't take long until Sasuke was also successful in opening his status menu and observing his class. It says here that I'm the sword hero, Sasuke confirmed as he put the menu away. Other than that, he found a lot of information about his HP, MP and SP, which he didn't know what those exactly mean. He also noticed that there was a help guide which he kept in mind to check out later. But the reaction of the other two heroes were much negative. These numbers are way low for us to even fight, Itsuki said, distressed. What do you mean? Naofumi asked, confused. This is status magic heroes, the king stated. And as for the low numbers, it is something that you can enhance on your journey to strengthen the legendary weapons you possess. You mean these weapons don't start off strong? We gotta get them to a useful stage, Motoyasu whined. That's a drag, we should at least use other better weapons until then. At that, a notification popped up in front of all the heroes. A legendary hero may only wield the legendary weapon assigned to them. To that, both Itsuki's and Motoyasu's face fell even further. Sasuke only raised an eyebrow at the new predicament. Now then, I shall begin with an explanation. This country is about to face the greatest threat humanity has ever known. He started, his voice slowly changing into a more sober tone. Our greatest adventurers and our army all stand ready to fight it, but their strength will not be enough to end the coming evil. The king slowly explained how their world is threatened by the waves of calamity. Sasuke could tell that the king was trying to act sorrowful to win their compassion. The story they heard was the same story told by the mages but more detailed. The waves would come with the signals of the ancient hourglass under the prophecies made by the oracles of old. It was considered nothing more than a distant myth, until the waves started as the sense ran down. The very sky split open and a dimensional rift opened up, releasing monster after monster until everything is destroyed or they're killed. But the waves would only grow worse until it consumed the world. The world is in need of its heroes to protect it once again, the king said. Will you young men be willing to save it and become its heroes? He asked dramatically. Motoyasu took this chance to speak up, saying, yeah, I get the gist of it where you guys are coming from. But we aren't people you can just command. Surely you didn't summon us expecting us to save you for free? Itsuki's soon followed, I agree. Besides, if you guys send us back home after peace has been restored, then we would have done all that work for nothing. Naofumi also added, he's right. Since this is not our world, we don't have to dedicate our time and lives to bring peace to your kingdom. Do we even get compensated once we secure the peace of this country? Sasuke kept quiet all the while and was disappointed on how the trio could just make such demands. They have been summoned to another world and told to fight for this world's survival. And the first thing you care about is money? The king nodded at the minister standing next to him and said while smiling, well, of course we are planning to compensate you for your efforts. Naturally, I've made arrangements to support you financially, and also to provide you with whatever you may require, in thanks for your efforts. And what about sending us back to our world? Do you know of any method that could send us back? The Uchiha's voice cut through the room like a knife. The king replied in a sympathetic tone, well, I'm sorry to say this, but the only way you can return back to your world is by ending the calamity threatening our world. And considering you are the only people who have the way to put a stop to it, I'm afraid you will need to help us resolve our problem if you want to go home. Other than Naofumi, the other two heroes took this with stride while the Uchiha's eyes narrowed dangerously. So, you don't have a way to send us back? Then there's no further point in staying here, the Uchiha said as he was making his way out. The king along with the other three heroes were quite surprised at the sword hero's statement as the king asked, Wait, Sir Sasuke. Where are you going? Sasuke stopped and looked at the king from the corner of his eye and said, "You don't know how to send me back to my world. So I'll find my own way back." "And what about the waves? Aren't you going to fight it to save our world?" "I don't see. How's that my problem?" "Hey man, don't be so indifferent to them, they're just desperate people in need of help," Motoi Asu tried to convince the Uchiha like the incident at the summoning room never happened. The Uchiha snorted at that. Desperate indeed, for them to kidnap people from another world and using them as soldiers. "It's the duty of a cardinal hero to protect the people of this world," Alt Cray was grasping at straws at this point. "And I never desired to be summoned as this world's cardinal hero," Sasuke replied in a icy cold tone which made the throne room full of nobles to gasp loudly and gossip about the reluctant hero. Alt Cray had enough of the sword hero's antagonism and ordered the guards, "Do not let the sword hero leave the castle." All the guards present inside the throne room brandished their swords and spears in an attempt to intimidate the Uchiha. The other three heroes who had experienced the Uchiha's killing intent recently knew to keep their distance. Sasuke wasn't intimidated at the slightest, but was rather livid at the king trying to chain him down like some slave. Bangs covering his eyes, his facial expression was unseen by the guards. He took a measured step towards the group of guards surrounding him. One of the burly guards to the right of the Uchiha decided to impede his path. He swung his spear at the hero intending to hit him with its shaft. In the next few moments a lot of things happened. At speeds none can fathom the Uchiha moved. The spear that the guard was holding broke into hundreds of wooden chunks from a single strike from Sasuke. Before the guard could even register what just happened, two powerful jabs dug into the man's chest breaking several ribs. Next a painful knee smashed into the man's face breaking his nose and flinging him into the far wall with a loud crash. That's it for today, please comment for a part 2.